Welcome to episode 2 of Uncovering Joy. Each month, I have the absolute pleasure of catching up and chatting with one of my many favorite humans who forever inspire me in their quest to live fully with passion and integrity. What I really love about this is the opportunity to touch in on the intimacy of different practices, a reminder of life's nuance and color, and a recognition that part of living fully comes from our ability to embrace and celebrate individuality, to lean into those things that light us up, that ignite joy, and that bring us home to wholeness. Again, this wonderful notion of many paths, one destination, and the invitation to curiously explore what sets your soul on fire. I'm super excited to have Angy joining me today. We first met in India during a training where I was very quickly enamored by her infectious zest for life. Our paths have delicately intertwined since, and it's been such a delight to see the evolution of her own personal journey. What inspires me most about Angy is her capacity to bring you into the space of practice in a way that is deeply personal, full of heart and soul, and deliciously playful. She offers the sweetness of her practice to you in devotion and in reverence, and you can't help but be drawn into her shared expression of effortless joy. So, Angy, thank you so much for being here, for being part of this ride. I'm just so grateful and I'm so excited.
That's not fair, you starting with that introduction, because I just want to cry. This is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words and for making this happen, because I think we definitely need to share our experience of this path. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Let's dive straight in because I've just been so excited to speak about this. So as with every month, each person I speak to, there is an offering that will then be available on my on-demand library. And I was particularly excited about this one because it's an invitation to move into something that can feel far-reaching or esoteric. And it was just so intimate and so beautiful. So before we get to the actual offering, I would love for you to just tell me or tell us a little bit about what your own practice is, what that speaks to. I know there are many facets of it, but there is a specific one that really lights you up and that has almost been like the biggest coming home for you.
Okay. Yes. Well, this is my favorite topic to talk about, the practice. Yes, as I've grown older, my practice has definitely changed with me, and it's quite amazing to see how a practice is something that is alive. It is something you have a relationship with, and so it is something that evolves through time. And for instance, at times there has been time when I've been completely in love with my practice. There has been times when I've been breaking up with my practice. There have been times I've been sulking my practice. To realize that, the practice is only doing its job of being a practice, and it's obviously something to do with me changing and trying to find my way home, like you mentioned. So I think the most important thing about practice that I learned is that you need to let your practice breathe. And every time I found myself quite stuck with my practice, it's because I was too rigid, and I tried to keep it, I tried to contain my practice, and I was suffocating it, even though I was changing, because every day as we come into the mat, we obviously a different person than the day before. And by trying to really keep the practice the same way stops you from evolving as well. So I've experienced all those different colors with the practice, and I've come now to I feel like I'm always in a crisis, because I feel like that's what life is. You just go from a crisis to another one. And actually, not talking to you about it, I feel like maybe I'm out of this crisis, and I'm actually quite stable in my practice at the moment. Since I have found Bhakti yoga. So I started with a very physical practice because I needed to go through the body to get into the deeper layers of myself. And what's funny is that with so Bhakti is a practice of a spiritual practice of devotion, of reverence, and a practice of music, of sounds, let's say sacred sounds. And what's funny is that if I look back, I started my journey with music because I was singing from a very young age, but never did I even think of the word spiritual as a thing because it was not to me. And so I started with that, and then I kind of took a break from singing and I got into yoga. And recently it's like music and yoga has just merged together, and they have given birth to what I call now Bhakti. So, and I feel actually like it's a good example of what a lot of people will go through in life. It's like when we're very young, we already who we're supposed to be, and we already know what we want. And it's like we go around the bush 1,000 times to actually come back to that place we knew we were feeling good. So now Bhakti is so a devotional practice, and I use sounds, like I said, but mostly about practice. It's not about singing anymore. For me, it's the opposite. It's freeing myself from the perfection of singing, from the perfection of a note or of a melody. It's the most liberating practice, and that can really be applied in every aspect of life. So you don't practice Bhakti, you just are Bhakti. It's like devotion is not something you do, is a state, is the sweetest way to be. And so I think for now, and I'm not saying no to change, obviously maybe that will evolve as well, but Bhakti for now is just what brings me back to the fundamentals of life. Because when my mind gets too busy, or when I catch myself holding on to a thought or being worried about something, I sit on my harmonium and I just start chanting, and I realize that, well, there's nothing more than this. There's nothing more than this breath, this musical breath that is chanting. So that was a long explanation, but I could talk about it for ages. But it just speaks so much to me, because it is a way of life, and everything, as long as you turn everything into an offering, it's not like you're losing anything. By offering something, you're actually freeing yourself from the pressure of holding things and of being someone, of playing a role. If you're offering that, then you actually you can. I feel like it's a direct line to the formless. You just merge back into sound so quickly.
I love so much. I mean, I could listen to you speak about Bhakti all day.
You have to stop me.
I won't. And it's just so beautiful, and so many things that, again, it's so funny because things you'll touch on in so many different practices, and just this idea that it's not just a practice, it's the thing that you're doing is actually becoming part of life, so that it's who you're being. And something you said, and in the offering, is that which I really loved, is that Bhakti is known as path of the heart, but actually perhaps it's the path to the heart. It's coming home to that space. And then this idea of reverence, and when we look at that word and we kind of start to unpack it, it's really this idea of awe, like seeing the magic in world, which is why we can think of Bhakti and these practices where we're being liberated and singing and playing. It's that childlike awe, where we remember to see magic in every single moment of life, even in those ones that we've conditioned to believe are mundane, and it just, everything opens up again. And I've certainly seen this in the way that you offer this. Like, I know it's when someone's in that space where they found their spark, they shine so bright that you can't help but shine too, even if it's not yours. And that's certainly what I've experienced when I get to see you kind of offering this space. It's beautiful. I couldn't recommend it more. And I think it's so powerful, because it can be one of those things that we don't really know how to enter, and there can be a lot of resistance around it. I know, even in my own experience of having to use the voice, of being so nervous about, but what sound will I make, and what if it's not a good sound? And so what you said about, it's not even about perfection, it's just about freedom.
Yeah, and remember we had that chat actually when I thought it was so interesting that in English there are two words, there is the word singing and the word chanting. And I realized that recently because I'm French, and I realized recently that in French there's only one word, which is singing. And I found myself really frustrated sometimes, because the moment you say singing, people will just kind of tense, and they always tell me, "Oh, I'm not a singer." And if you have the word chanting, then all of a sudden that takes that pressure away, and all you need to do is, that's all I say. All it is a musical breath. It's a breath that makes sound, and that's all we need. And with this thing, the path of the heart, or the path to the heart, actually I surprised myself saying that in the video. I didn't know until I said it. and I think that's a really good line, because when you said sometimes Bhakti can be quite intimidating, and can feel not accessible to all, because people could feel like that they have to be in their heart space to chant, but actually they don't have to. They could come into a circle, they could come into their practice actually feeling very far from themselves, and feeling quite detached from everything, and not feeling any compassion, and not feeling great. And the chanting is the process through which we will get to that space. So, and I think that actually goes for a lot of practices. I've seen a lot of students, for instance, warming up before before practice. So they would do like a pre-practice before the practice sometimes, and I would always tell them, like, no, like, allow your practice to be that process of unfolding. Otherwise, you make your practice a goal. You make your practice a performance, or something that needs to be perfect when it doesn't have to. So that's why people who are, for those who are listening, and if you doubt, if you feel like you have to be something or someone before coming into the circle, this is not true. You have to just come with whatever you have, and only trust and believe that you can transform, and you can turn whatever you feel into something else. And that's all that is required. It's so simple.
Goosebumps. I love it so much. I love it so much. Yeah, and I really believe you have something powerful to offer. You make it accessible, which is so beautiful, which brings me to the class, which is so wonderful. And I could talk about this forever. And so with each offering, I always do it from the space of student first, so that I can speak to my experience, but also what's on offer. And it's so delicious, because even in the container of this one thing, you can see how many different ways you can approach something like Bhakti. It's not confined to one limited thing. And so there was just so much in it without it feeling overwhelming. So there's this invitation for ritual and how you approach ritual. There's journaling and contemplation, which is a huge context in yoga, like svadhyaya, self-study, like giving yourself the permission to ask how you feel and where you want to be. And then, the power of mantra japa, which is less melodic and more powerful, and kind of this rhythm and this beating. And then we moved into kirtan. And so, like, there's something for everyone. And devotion doesn't have to come in one form, nor does life. And that's what I love about it. And so, yeah, I just finished feeling joyful and courageous, and just like ready for life. And so, I mean, there are many things. I'm just going to find something. I loved how you talked about rituals, not just something that we do. And it really resonated with me. I have this quote that someone had posted on an Instagram, because I think ritual can, again, sometimes some things can sound like religious, but it's so not that. And I thought this would vibe with you. So it says, rituals are like threads woven together to create a net of support for our well-being. As a devotional practice, rituals help us feel anchored amidst the fluctuations of life. Right?
I love it. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And so I just love that you brought that within the context of this practice. And it was not even just those things at the beginning. Every single part of it could become a ritual that, helps you feel whole in your day. But anyway, I could continue chatting about it forever, but I would love to know, the inspiration behind it, your intention. And then, so this is a big one. Why specifically Durga? So we speak to a particular deity within it, but why does she speak to you?
Okay. we start talking about her now. So the first question was the my intention behind this practice in general. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to, and you said it, so I believe then my goal was attained, as what I wanted was to really offer different colors and different options for people to practice devotion. So I'm really happy this is what you felt, because yes, there is something for everyone during different times. So I want to show that I wanted to show that Bhakti could be, of this kind of practices, could be something that invokes some gentleness within you, but they can also be invoking some like strength or something quite fierce and quite powerful. And what we want ultimately is actually a combination of both. Just like in physical, when we practice physically, we want a combination of flexibility and of strength. This is exactly the same for the heart, for the mind, and it's all the same. And as I brought rituals also, it's because I wanted to show how real devotion is. Too often we think of it as something abstract or something that is that doesn't really exist because it's not there. So the moment we let it come into our hands, the moment we touch it, the moment we involve the body, then all of a sudden it's here, it exists. There's flowers over there, I'm offering something, there's this whole gesture, this whole leaning forward, and I really wanted to show how we can relate and we can apply these things, these rituals into life. Because the way you offer a flower to the deity, and if that's too much for you, you don't have to. But that same way, this is how you're going to offer a plate of food to your friend. This is how you're going to. We do this gesture all the time. And for those who find it quite difficult to maybe give to people, give a bit of themselves to people, that could be a starting point to first giving. In like, if you're alone in your room doing that, first giving a bit of you to this deity, and that could, and then you just relate that to life, and you just keep like going around like this, and then why Durga is so well. I was going to say it was obvious because she's always the first one that comes to mind, but then it was obvious the first second. And then when my mind started getting involved, my heart was saying Durga, but my mind was like, no, but what's actually the best deity? Like strategically, which one should I pick? And I was like, oh, so I need to imagine that I'm filming for someone who doesn't know Bhakti at all, because I think we should always offer from that place so that no one is excluded from the practice. And I was like, oh, so where should I start? Should I just talk about devotion? Like, what is devotion? Or should I help people experience devotion rather? And obviously that was I think the wisest option. And Durga came to heart straight away because, well, she's the first one I really connected with. And actually, there's such a beautiful story, and I've got it here. Actually, okay. Now this is maybe too far out, but when I talk about the power of rituals and how you can turn something quite abstract at first into something physical, this is why we have like pictures of deities, or we have murtis, so the statues, or anything that represents something bigger. And I have this little thing over here, and you can see there's a bit of sand over there. And for me, this is Durga, and I take her everywhere. This is my Durga. This sand is the sand from the Sahara Desert. And I went to a retreat last year in the Sahara Desert, and I think this was one of my biggest spiritual awakening over there, because obviously I spent a lot of time alone on top of my dune. Just I don't know how long I would sit there, because time kind of dissolved over there, and being in such landscape where life was so naked and where we were back to basics, I sat there and I had never felt until then that feminine presence, because it was so naked and it was so spacious and so empty. I had never felt so held by something. And this is when I realized that, oh my gosh, so God, or however you want to call it, God can only come into empty spaces. If you keep filling up this space, then there's no room for God or for high intelligence to come through. And there I was, completely naked and open to whatever was going on. And this is when I felt, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what yoga has been talking about. This is the mother. This is her. She's right here. And so I spent this full week being completely surrendering to her and feeling like I was back in the womb, because also the desert really feels like, it almost looks like the face of the earth before men were born. It felt like I was at the beginning of time, and it was just this beautiful, like the desert was giving birth to me, and it was incredible. And so I came back with a bit of sand. And since then, she's just the remembrance. It's like, okay, whatever happens, she's holding you. And especially actually in times when things are hard, or when you feel like life is a bit empty and a bit dull, this is when she finds room to come through. And in that sense, she really saved me, and she helped me. She really held my hand onto the next stage. And I think this is how kind of Bhakti opened to me since that time. So that's why Durga.
I just want you to speak forever.
But I'm like, yeah, she's telling me that she's not only in the desert, but she can come anywhere in the world.
I love that so much. Yeah, what you say about needing to be empty to allow kind of life and the messages and the signals to move through you. And it's so simple, the ask, right? Just to sit and be quiet. But the actual doing of it is far more complex, because I think we're so used to feeling like we need to control or think our way into the thing that we seek. And it sounds so cliche to say it's already within you, but like it always is. And it's actually in those moments that you do surrender and allow for the space and the signals and the messages or the impulse of life that so much sweetness arises from it. And I think there was something you actually said in the class when there was the journaling section. And again, I love so much about it because all of it was so personal. You offered yourself through it. And I think it was this idea of, you don't search for the answers. Actually, you just surrender and listen. And when the moment is right, the answers will come to you. And so it is this space of listening and being okay to be quiet and know that sometimes we won't hear anything. And that's also okay. As one thing my teacher taught me was that, can you be okay with being still when there is no impulse, and knowing that when the impulse will come, you'll be ready? I was like, sometimes I have to do nothing.
Yeah, the doing nothing is it's crazy. It's crazy to see that we need permission, but we do. Like, it's crazy to look back and see how much we drifted away from that basic way of living, and we do need permission. And sometimes I have to almost turn my mind into a character telling my body to surrender. It's like the whole conversation is happening like, okay, I'm allowing myself to do nothing. And it's such a difficult thing because we have associated I think gain or efforts, like that we cannot gain anything unless we have provided the efforts for it. And not just even easy, like small efforts. They have to be the painful efforts, or they have to make you sweat, or you have to struggle to deserve good things, and it's so far it's actually so far from it. And when we realize, the first thing I feel so silly, like, oh my gosh, I'm so silly. All this time I spent trying, thinking that I was doing the right thing. No.
Yeah, I agree too. And like I preach the values of rest and slowing down, and like I do it, but it's effort to remind myself, because I also over effort. And again, like what you just said is just so on the money. My teacher, another conversation, and it was like, life is abundant. It's always giving you what you want. It was like, but sometimes you're asking for it standing with an umbrella lifted up whilst it's raining abundance on you. And I was just like, what a great analogy. It's just like me, like, please bring me everything, but I've got an umbrella blocking it off.
Well, we do that. Yeah. Full of umbrellas. Oh my gosh.
all the time.
Ah,
So yeah, I love the intimacy of the class that you offered. I can tell it's coming from a space from the heart, because you do get taken into that. And I highly recommend just tasting the flavor of its essence. And it just, for me, it's such an invitation to keep bringing that into life. And it is this act of giving. But what I found especially was, not just giving to others. It reminded me that when I'm offering to the deity, I'm also offering to myself. There was such a deep sense of self-compassion. At this time, is I offer it to you, but I offer it to me too, because I know that you exist within me. Um, and yeah, with the mantra japa
yes.
and Durga, I definitely, there's such a sense of love, but there's this steadiness. So if you do the mantra
Mm.
japa, there's this dum dum, and it felt like a heartbeat. And so when I finished
Like a
it, I
beating
felt like,
drum. Yeah.
yeah, like this steady call to courage. And then
Mm.
it made me think about courage, and Brené Brown's well-known kind of breakdown of it. And the original meaning of courage it's not about bravery, but singing the song of your heart, like
Mm-hmm.
telling the truth of who you are. And so I just had this moment, like, how cool is this?
Yeah, but it's exactly that. It's about, I think, redefining our idea of strength and power, because strength or power doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be forceful. It's the opposites. Like, you find strength in being vulnerable and in surrendering. This takes so much courage and strength to actually bow down to a deity, which is bowing down to yourself. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned again this the purpose of this practice, because at the end of the day, a practice, you feel like you're giving to the practice, but actually this practice is there to give back to you. And it's kind of almost us playing games with ourselves, because if you ask me, especially like a few years ago, if you asked me, okay, can you give yourself some love, it would have been so hard to stand in front of myself and give myself some love. So I feel like we're going through all these like deities, all these practices, as a way back to ourselves. But ultimately, it is coming back, and it's just practicing this reciprocity, and remembering that, yes, I'm offering flowers, but by the way, those flowers were created by you. So actually, I am just passing your own creation, and I'm also your own creation, and and you can't really comprehend with the mind, because it's just a never-ending story. But it's about, yeah, actually I'm offering something, but I'm not losing anything of myself, because what I'm offering is something of you already. And I love this I love that it's picking your brain a bit. It's like, oh my gosh, your mind, actually, you have to let go of your mind, otherwise you just go crazy.
But isn't that beautiful? Like, it is, it makes you think so much that you realize that I can't think my way through this. I have to feel my way through this.
Yeah.
And then again, that this idea of devotion. So I know I mentioned Tracy Stanley's this teacher I'm obsessed with at the moment, and I mentioned her to you. And what I love is her invitation of devotion over discipline.
Mm.
We have these practices, and you mentioned it before, like, yes, we show up, but we don't just show up to do and to do and to do, and we can't be confined. Practice evolves as you evolve. And so I think that aspect of devotion, of feeling something, is what will guide you to continue to evolve, rather than be confined, to not think your way through, but to have that sense of awe and delight and love. And it will, you will give as much as it gives back to you.
Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned her to me, because she is amazing. And what I love is, in her little introduction, every time she says, "And now relax into your power." And just this, I'm like, I don't think I've ever made a sentence with relax and power in the same sentence, but that work pretty well together. And I was like, whoa, this is big. Relax into your power.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, rest is waiting to receive you.
Mm.
I was like, okay.
I want to marry rest.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Mm. Okay. So to kind of round it all off, and this is what I'll always finish asking people, because again, it kind of just invites us to see such a unique expression of one thing. It delights people in so many different ways. And so what does joy mean for you? And what are your means for just uncovering it, reclaiming it, and living it fully?
Sorry. Okay. um, Joy is. I'm just thinking, because I have sometimes some problems with words, especially now that I chant more and more. I'm so happy there because I take words away and I just get the essence of them. So joy, I think, is when I feel joy. Joy is when I feel like I have a purpose, but yet I have nothing to do. So it's when I feel like oh yeah, there's a purpose for this all, but but I have nothing to do, and nowhere to go, no one to be, and nothing to do to fill that purpose. And so from that liberation, I think emerges joy, because there's just this weight lifted, and I think the moment you release yourself from the weight of things that you have to do, of roles you have to play, and also for me, and it's a big one, the pressure of time. I feel like I have a mission in life, and I feel like I have such little time, because I think of myself as a human being with between birth and death, and the moment you realize that, well, there's nothing you have to do anyway, so you can just let go of your list. And the moment, as long as you listen, you will be gently pushed towards the things, like the places you need to go to, but you don't really decide, actually. So you just have to be open for that. And the moment, for me, when in times when I manage to dissolve time, this is when joy and peace come, like arise within me. And the practice of yoga is in many forms. It is what helped me pacify my relationship with time, because it's always been quite a big one. Time, it's always been like a threat, and with the practice, and maybe if people who are listening have experienced a physical practice, for instance, it's crazy how you could practice the same practice, and some days it would feel so long and some days it would feel so short. And when I first experienced that in my yoga journey, I thought, oh my gosh, but I feel like yoga has a special power, as in it can just shrink time, or it can just expand time. And this is when I realized that, well, time doesn't really exist then. If you can just move like this all the time, it just doesn't exist. So every time I forget about time, and chanting and music help me to really forget about it, I can only be joyful. This is just the joy of being liberated. This release. I think this release is joy. Is joy. Yeah.
So many bits I love about that. There's this really wonderful Irish poet called John O'Donoghue, who I'm obsessed with. So many people I'm obsessed with. He said one thing I think you'd like, what you were mentioning about words, and he was like, words are what was it? It's almost like words. I have to remember it properly, but it's basically that they're what they wish, like music is what words wish they could be.
Oh yes.
Music is what words wish they could be.
Yes.
We do as well as we can with words, but they're confined because it's a different feeling for everyone, whereas music is like it comes alive in you.
Yes.
He also mentions about time, actually, and how it can either be our enemy, and that's often when we're trapped in the confines of the mind, and when we're not, and when we find that space between and behind the thoughts, and it starts to expand, and time then becomes expansive and timeless, and on our side. And yeah, I think that's the big one. I have it too. It's almost like I'm running out.
Yes, it's really, yeah. And I think most of most of our obstacles, actually, if you break it down, I don't think there's many problems or many obstacles. It all comes down to a few, and I think time is a big one. And if you break it down, actually, it's not really time. It's more that you've identified, we've identified ourselves to the body that will die, and that's more because of that. And if we've identified with the body, it's because we are so scared of actually surrendering to the formless. We're just so attached to the form. So, but if we're so scared, it's because we obviously lack of faith, because we don't believe that we're held and will be forever swimming in that ocean. So if you break it down, it brings it back to Bhakti.
Totally.
Oh, Bhakti.
Yeah. And I also love how you said it's that sense of I have purpose, but nothing I need to do.
Yes.
And it sounds like it sounds like a contradiction. But it's not. Like, it really, that is the thing that exists. And it's real purpose, because it's not us thinking about what we need to do in order to do a thing. It's like, it's simply the act of being and feeling so full in that the guidance will arise in the moment.
Yes. But it's quite a difficult sometimes, because by saying, oh, I'll just allow myself to flow through life, sometimes the interpretation could be that, oh, I'm going to just be passive, then I'm just going to do nothing. But it's not that at all. You actually you really participate in life, because if you don't participate in life, if you become passive, you're actually blocking life and blocking the flow of life. So it's about finding the right balance between, you don't want to do too much because you will block life, but you don't want to do too little, because life is by nature moving. Life's deepest desire is to expand. The Shakti is just wild and free. It just wants to be and to experience itself. So we have to just let that flow through us.
Yeah. Like, to feel the expansion.
Yes.
Yeah. One of my teachers, it's almost like a game, and it was like, it's your body feeding back to you. When there's expansion, it's a sense of moving into that space. And when there's contraction, then things aren't being so effortless, and there's something to look at there.
Yes. And when when we mentioned time, actually, something came back to mind. 2 days ago, I went to a Buddhist meditation, actually, because I wanted to try something else. And the teacher ended with this line, and he just ended, and he left me with this, and everybody started opening their eyes and just leaving the room. And I was like, I'm not done here. Can I just stay and cry for, like, life is starting now? And he just ended like very sneaky, like he read a bit of a poem, and then the last two lines were, and time was dying and love was staying. I couldn't handle it. Because it's true, like everything will go, so that, but what's left is just love will stay. Just
it's true. Okay, I could continue forever.
I know, me too.
but I'll round it off. But I'd like to finish just by opening the space. So if you have anything coming up, if you want to let people know where they can find you, what they can find, and I'll obviously include all the details within the description so that they can join in and touch in on more of your magic.
Thank you. So you can find me on Instagram. So I am under the name of at Angy, ANGY.yoga. Also have a website that is being that is under construction at the moment. So I think Instagram is the best way to see my news. And I will be organizing a Bhakti course, a Bhakti sadhana, which I've done in French already, but I will be doing it in English. I don't have a date yet, so maybe by the time we show this, I will have a date to write down. But if you're interested, it will be just such pleasure to welcome everybody in. It's really accessible to everyone, and we go through different deities and different stories, so it can be really fun. But also we make sure that we apply that to ourselves, so that these practices are useful to us. Otherwise, there's no point in practicing if you can't take it away with you in life. So we do a lot of things, and there's a lot of content, and it's a beautiful way of sharing that journey. So that's the next big thing will be that course.
I want to do it. That's exciting. Yes, I couldn't recommend a thing more. Especially, you know, this idea of again, the deities and you know, the gods, the goddesses, they can feel esoteric, but they speak to really real qualities within ourselves. I think having that exploration and understanding how to approach that in life is such, again, it's playful, but
very.
it's like it's visceral and it's relatable, and it takes the cryptic quality of yoga, like it demystifies it.
Yes, exactly. And also what I like about this deity is that they're really not perfect.
No.
They make mistakes and they're really, really not. They make you feel quite good sometimes. Feel like you're a really good person. So yeah, they're definitely relatable. Yeah, and it is a lot of fun. Like playful is, oh yeah, it is very playful because they all also because you realize, but as you're diving into Bhakti, you realize that actually there's not that many gods and they're all the same one with different faces and being different people, and it's just a and it's a beautiful mess. It's just a beautiful party, a beautiful party.
I like the beautiful mess. I feel like that's life, right?
Yeah, right. The people in your head. Yeah.
Angy,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you so much. I'm so happy. Thank you. Thank you.
More chats with you. I love this so much.
Yes, please.
Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon for episode 3.